And our guest today is the Commissioner of South Miami Commissioner Josh Liebman. Welcome and Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So here we have a new...
How long do we say Happy New Year for?
I know. It's got to be coming up pretty soon, right? All right. Oh, yes. And you bring up a really good point. How long after the first are we tired of getting all those texts and Instagram stuff?
And to that point, I noticed you're wearing your Halloween.
I'm ready. I'm ready
color.
Yeah,
you're wearing pumpkin.
Yes, I'm ready for Halloween. Right?
Excellent.
I was just with a gentleman who's talking about the upcoming hurricane season. I went, already?
The football season.
Yes. So we have seasons for everything. So during your season...
Although we don't.
All right.
We have one season in Miami.
So right now, you're serving how many years have you been serving now, South Miami?
I'm approaching my 11th on Valentine's Day.
Oh, my goodness. And
he
said he was only going to do it for one term.
That's right.
But
I ran for two reasons. One, because you asked me to, and two, because I couldn't find a date on Valentine's Day, which is when my first election was on February. When is Valentine's? 14th.
And besides that,
I don't even know.
And back then,
14th,
basically, you're
2012.
unemployable, other than real estate, right? And you're
Certainly
running
now. Or I'm very employable now
Yes.
that people see how hard I work
Yes.
for so little.
And you bring up a really good point. And to your credit and to the city's credit, the improvements, the visual improvements, which really took place that caused the government to change, which was, let's make this better, right? And you did. Let's talk about the park for a minute, Donnie Fussell Park.
Certainly.
Right? So you had this idea maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago?
No, when I first ran, which would make it 12 years ago.
So right now, how many...
So there were three questions, but focusing on the park, we had the most neglected parks in the county out of 34 municipalities. So I always say to people, how are we able to achieve the best parks transformation story in the county over any 10, 15, 20-year period? It's because of where we started. That's how I was able to create that story, because the parks were so neglected. So that was the first thing I focused on and still am.
But why do you think they were neglected? It just wasn't a high priority, or was it a financial consideration? Do you know?
So I think it was because of the makeup of the commission, and we'll talk about that in the product of the catalyst of moving the election to November. But I used to say, when I was on the dais, how come I'm the one champion parks when I don't have children? And at that point, it's nice when people have children that sit on the dais. You really want people from all different stages of life. But you tend to find when people don't have children, they aren't visiting parks with their grandchildren, they tend to be overlooked. But now when you look at our commission, in comparison to previously, look how many people on the commission have young children.
So
Everyone except me.
So you bring up a really good
Went from
point.
no children to everyone except me has
So
young
people
children.
people may have interest in serving on different boards, and there's a people of all colors, all short, tall, skinny, fat, kids, no kids, single, married, and they can have input in that. So they don't have to be an expert in parks. Maybe there's somebody in another a board that they could serve on, and that adds the flavor that makes up the city of South Miami. So right now, you led the charge to where are there about a dozen man-sized sculptures out there now?
You're right. Almost a dozen. We're at 11.
It's
all donated.
Yeah, it's truly amazing that number one, that you had that vision, too, that you were able to do something about it, right?
So there's a couple good. Usually when we say unintended consequences in Miami, it's not necessarily a good consequence, but in this case it was. First, I wanted to start the Sister City program, and then I wanted to, very similar to Cartagena Circle or Cartagena Plaza with the steel boots, which is symbolic of Cartagena. And it's the same symbolism between New York, or the U.S. and Paris and New York. I'm sorry, the U.S. and France and New York and Paris. I was looking or hoping to secure a Botero as a gift from Medellin, because that's where Botero's from. What ended up happening was we created I named it Columbia Sculpture Garden in recognition of the South Miami Medellin Sister City program. That way I could solicit sculptures from all over Colombia. But what's ironic about that, which I didn't know at the time, it's the only place in the U.S. solely devoted to Colombia, which are number one. When I say are, it's the U.S.'s number one ally in South and Central America. Now, there are places like Bolivar Plaza in front of Bayside, which are devoted to Colombia, and Peru and Ecuador and Venezuela and so forth. And the other bit of irony, it's the only true sculpture garden in the entire state, and it's right here in South Miami. It's all outdoors, it's all free, and it's all contemporary art. There's a couple places that refer themselves as
And
sculpture
some of these
gardens.
pieces, to put in perspective, are 5, 6, 7 feet tall,
Oh, greater, 12 feet.
12 feet, and this wide,
Right.
right? When you walk in there, you know that it's significant to the planning went into. At the beginning, some of the people chastise you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Still.
of course.
All donated art.
Right. And so there's old saying about change. First, they get angry. Second, they get frustrated and reject you. And third, they finally go, okay. And so you were able to move people through by getting people to donate. We'll put aside that some of those pieces would have cost somebody hundreds of thousands of
We're
dollars
up
each.
to over $2.5 million so far. And I always say in reference to the park that I don't know the first thing about art. What I do know is that nothing transforms areas like art. And you take Wynwood, for example. Wynwood was amongst the lowest property values in the country, and now it's amongst the highest simply because of the transformation, which is 100% attributed to art, right? And the investment followed.
So
You saw it in South Beach.
So when you look now at the totality of that park, because there's these little pieces that grew to bigger pieces that were better, it caused everybody to pay more attention to the whole park, which ultimately actually leads to other parks and to other parts of the city.
Right.
So
And
you're able to move that through.
The other bit of irony about that location is it's located at Donnie Fussell Park, and he was the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee. He was considered the foremost authority on South and Central America and the Caribbean. The other thing that's so fitting about that location, which a lot of people don't realize, is 57th Avenue and 88th Street, Red Road and Kendall, divide the three most affluent areas or municipalities in Dade County, two of which are municipalities, Pinecrest and Coral Gables, and High Pines, which is the most affluent area on Incorporated Dade. And then we have South Miami. But South Miami has, right, the best police. Our garbage services are equivalent to the Gables, and we have the park. So it's interesting. That intersection divides four municipalities if we consider the county a municipality.
Let's talk about you have 3 new people on the dais. You have a new mayor.
And Brian
Right.
Corey is relatively new. He
Right.
was elected in what I refer to as a special election.
Yeah,
because-
yes. And then 2 other people are brand new.
well, 3 people are brand new,
Yes.
and Brian was
And Brian,
elected
yeah.
in a special.
So that's 4 out of the
special
5
election. Right.
have been there. Well, 3 have only been there 2 months, and then Brian there for 2 years, and you, the
April
old guy,
20th.
the old guy in the
Who would have thunk it?
yeah. You don't have any gray hair. How does that happen? So let's talk. So
I
you
cut
have,
it off.
so you have you said a new commission. The city clerk retired and is moving.
The
to-
city manager.
City manager. I'm sorry, city manager moving to the other coast as far away as possible. Actually, to be with her daughter and her grandchildren. And then you also have. Do you have a new city attorney?
We do.
All right.
Wait, affirm.
Okay.
So new city attorney, new city manager,
So
and those are 2 of our 3 charter employees.
Yes.
A new
So-
commission.
yeah, so that is a big deal for any organization. All right, that's in all the years we've been following South Miami. It's never had that kind of transition. Usually, the leaders stayed on for a long period of time. So what does it mean?
Well, you just said big transition, and you said South Miami's never experienced anything like this. And what I tell people, and in my opinion, the hardest thing to do in any organization, right, corporate, private, or public, especially on the government, small municipal level, is change the culture, change the psychology. And that's something I told you that I wanted to do, right, 12 years ago. And the biggest catalyst was moving the election. Moving the election attracted better
So you
candidates.
headed that up to move it from
It's
February
slowly
and the people voted on it. So it took 2 times.
2 to 1. Well, it took me a number of times, but like so many other things in life, you only have to hear yes once. But when it passed, when it was on a November ballot, passed exactly 2 to 1. We were here. I was watching the results here.
2 to 1.
66
That is amazing.
to 34%.
So that's significant as far as a mindset change from the way it had been done for a long time. So sometimes those changes take a long time to occur. So my congratulations to one for you bring up to for the citizens in South Miami saying, let's put it in sync. Let's have it in November. Why have this thing 2 months later? And I remember one of the people said, well, if we move it, the priority for the city is going to drop. No, it didn't. Actually, there are more people that are going to be involved.
You're lowering your standard deviation, you're increasing participation, which will further engage the community. But the way I sold it was what's more democratic than higher turnout. So the turnout was over 100% greater in a non-presidential cycle, and the cost was
Wait,
maybe
say that again.
in a non-presidential cycle,
Yep.
the turnout was over 100% greater, and the cost to the city was 20%. So on a cost per vote, I mentioned these exact figures in the meeting following the election, but it cost us approximately, let's just say, based on the numbers I gave, 10%. But let's just say 15% per vote of what it cost before. So
You had more people voting.
and it would cost the city a fraction of what it did before.
And you feel good when you go to the polls instead of going and there's like 5 items. No, you're going because you feel really good. People could vote for their local representative.
And here's the intangible. Our local election didn't get lost on the long ballot. We were on the front page, top right. And all of the ballot items passed except for one.
What were some of the ballot items that were on?
One, since I've been in office, and you're very familiar with this, Michael, no one's been able to show me a unanimous vote requirement in any other municipality or government or voting body. We required a 5 out of 5 unanimous vote for any increase in density. That was finally reduced to, I'm saying this was reduced to a supermajority. Usually it's increased to a supermajority, but in this case it was reduced to a supermajority, 4 to 5. And there's some housekeeping items, and we were also able to have meetings a minimum of once a month as opposed to a mandatory.
So let's talk about before it's 5 out of 5. Under the new plan, is that 4 out of 5, or is it a majority of the people that are there? So if 2 people weren't there, no, if one of the people weren't there, would it still have to be?
Then it has to be unanimous, and it has to be 4 to 4.
Okay.
Requires 4 votes.
So that is significant difference, right? The people voted for both those things. That was a yes on both. I'm for the
Correct.
change.
The only item that failed, there were a total of 5 ballot items, was extending the mayor's term from 2 years to 4 years. And I still want to do that. The reason that the mayor's term is 2 years and the commissioner's terms are 4 years is to keep the commission races, when this was a special election, to keep the commission races relevant in a non-mayoral election. But now that the election's in November, the turnout, the relevancy is already built in. So I think that the mayor's term should be 4 years, just like the commission. Why should the position that should be the most influential really be the least, I don't want to say powerful, but the least influential, because the mayor has an equal vote and now is an equal vote for half the time.
Yes.
So 2 years as opposed to 4 years.
So let's talk about the project that the county and the related companies are building just a few blocks from here. Let's start with the dollars, more or less. How many dollars are being spent on this? More or less.
Say about 125 million.
On the whole project or on part of that?
Or it's between 125 and 150
Okay.
million. Right.
So
Those
this
numbers
is-
keep increasing.
Yeah. So this is going to replace the 50-year-old townhouses that were there, owned by the county,
Correct.
and those were, some of those were Section 8, I think that's the term, maybe it's not, but owned by the
And
county.
those are just building costs, by the way, because the land was already owned.
So, and how many more living units will be available, more or less? It's a couple hundred units, right?
More.
Right? So that is the first significant,
Because there's a mix of low income, and affordable, and some market rate. And then 5% will be townhomes that are for sale, and there'll be a little retail. So it's a mixed-use project.
I drive by every couple days, and it's just like, it's amazing. Because when you look at this new building going up, and the trees that are surrounding it, and then the other side that's now 55 or 60-year-old building, the same trees surrounding it, something significant is happening in that area by virtue of people are going to feel good about these apartments that are there. There are going to be a lot more people walking around. It improves how their lives, all right? School across the street, park next door.
Great
right?
school.
Yes, and then
And not just a park, but a pool and a community center. And it's like we say, feet on the street. And what I used to say, and what I may still be accurate today, although it's not as undiscovered, is that area I always thought was the best value in the county, because you have a metro rail, 2 hospitals, you're bookended by 2 hospitals and a university, and you have a metro rail and you had depressed property values. And of course, you have community newspapers.
Right across the
But in the
street.
community center, it's just a great location.
So that's pretty significant for us in particular, and for all the people that are there. It's just a few blocks from here. See, Marco Drugs opened up down the street 4 blocks over, and 3 years ago when she was looking at the property, I said, "Neighbor, come on over." She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "If you don't buy it, you're going to regret it. I can promise you." All right. And she struggled through the pandemic and everything. She finally is open, and it's very pleasant look on there. And when you walk in, she preserved the floor, the old floors that were made in the 50s,
Are they
60s.
terrazzo?
Yeah, with the little pieces of.
It's terrazzo.
All right, and she's preserved it, which costs a lot of money and a lot of time. It would have been easy just to do something else with it. Now I understand that the school board has decided to close J.R. Lee's school, and then at some point there'll be an apartment building there for school board.
Also related,
Also related.
urban related, yes.
Right. All
And
these things
the
are
goal there is to make that teacher housing.
significant for the north of Sunset Drive and west of US 1 is, remember Reverend Green? He said, we are all neighbors here, all right? 6'5" with fake legs, like, because he had diabetes and stood up like that. And so it takes a long time for those things to occur. And he said to me back then, he says, "Michael, do you know who gets Habitat for Humanity homes?" I said, "Who?" He says, "The ones that fill out the paperwork." He said, "If you don't fill out the paperwork, you have no chance of getting it." His job, his goal, his mission was to get people that needed it to start the process. And when people are not in it, or they lose out. So if people want to make applications to go into this new building over here, what's the process
Just
there?
to contact the county.
Contact county, this is it. They're gonna give opportunities for the old people to move back in, all right? But that's only about a third from what I understand, or less.
48 units.
48,
Right, assuming that everyone would want to come back.
yep. So we're really excited about that. I see the school over there continues to expand. It's called Somerset.
Somi Somerset.
Somi, like South Miami, all right? Right across the street from the park. Very, very good.
And they're also, with their expansion, they want to incorporate some smaller units, say one-bedroom apartments for teacher housing as well.
Say that again?
So with their expansion, with
Oh.
Somi Somerset,
Oh,
part of their application will include small apartments. I can't tell you if they're one bedrooms.
you
or
mean
two
on
bedrooms
the
square
property?
footage. Right, for teacher housing.
Oh, no kidding. That's the way to do it. And your kids can go downstairs. How perfect is that? I'm right over here. All right, no car needed. There's certainly one of the issues that people are talking about nowadays is mobility. That includes how people are getting around. Are there going to be? There could be a lot of people that are going to be walking through that area, and I think the more developed it gets, more opportunity there are for jobs, and people might stay there. The Metro Rail on Sunset and US 1 gets pretty close to the development area. They put in student housing on 3 of the floors, I think. It's beautiful. It was like knockdown, gorgeous. How did this ever happen? They built right through the pandemic. And when you see people walking around on 68th, 7th Street on their way to by US 1 with their dogs and the kids, it's magnificent. So what is going to happen with the zoning on Progress and Commerce Lane, if anything? That's where typically car dealers have, car repair shops are there. Something that's needed, but it's not the most attractive.
Right. So right now it's automotive. It's the designation is industrial. And my vision, going back again 12 years, was always similar to Austin, Texas, a 4th or 6th Street. And the reason being is because the proximity to the university. And when you also look at that area, it's triangular, right? Those 2 streets run parallel, and they're actually they're small footprints. So it would be, and then you could always do residential on top, but it's privately owned. The only thing
Could there be 60 properties, 60 property owners, 40?
Yeah, I'm not. Well,
It's a bunch.
individual parcels.
Yep.
As we know, individuals on more than one parcel. But the only thing we can do as a body, which we've done, is incentivize investment,
Right.
which increase the zoning there. Thus far, nothing's happened because I was able to pass my density increase, but that came with a lot of input from the commission. So they handicapped it with a low income component, arcade, bike storage. I'm fine with the green component, but it just made it more challenging. The other thing is they're really small footprints. You have to put together an assemblage. And as you know, those properties are
And it can take a
not
long
cheap.
time.
Right.
So let's talk about the homeowner that
But
lives.
Metro Rail, the university, it's a great location, and there's certainly a better use than automotive.
So in these areas of development, for the most part, it does not negatively impact the homeowners that are 2 miles away or 3 miles away. And actually, even a mile away from the development, the homes that are back here or south, doesn't negatively impact them. Some of the concern back a couple of years ago was the impact that the Sunset Place would have on the neighbors. At that point, the full commission voted 5-0 to give certain zoning that would be there. There would be a town center where people could go in the neighborhood and go there and be entertained for an evening. New buyer comes in, and he wants something more. Has he brought his plan to the city yet?
No.
All right. And you're smiling. So does that mean he's going too soon? Folks, you heard it here
I'm
first.
sorry that he's going. He'll come soon.
Yes.
Well, certainly. Yeah, I hope so.
All right. Because it's certainly this gem that needs a new look.
So I refer to as the anchor tenant of our commercial area, or
It is.
commercial core, or hometown. And what's so interesting about South Miami, which you know very well, the public may not know, is that our commercial businesses, or our commercial district, counts for 2/3 of our tax base. The reason I've always supported that district, anytime my residential constituents will challenge that, it's by supporting our commercial areas. We can keep city services rich and taxes low. Between the property taxes that the commercial property owners pay, and between business taxes, utility fees, and of course parking, counts for 2/3 of our budget.
Okay. Speaking of parking lot, I'm pretty good on Facebook. I'm pretty good on YouTube. I'm pretty good on
Michael,
LinkedIn.
you're an
Wait, hold
influencer.
on. Yeah, wait, I'm pretty good on newsletters and websites. When I pulled my truck into downtown South Miami the other day, and I said, I'm going to park here, and I'm going to go to the pay station and pay it. I said, oh, look, they took it out. I look across the street. It's not there either. I looked, and it's like, they're all gone. So I had an appointment, so I scribble out on a piece of paper, please, what happened to the pay station? Please don't give me a ticket. I'll be back in 15 minutes. So the point being on that is that there's always these changes that are going on, and I couldn't figure it out, I might add. That was the point. I could figure out all that stuff, but not this.
Well, you're not supposed to. That way we can give you a ticket.
Yeah, okay. Speaking
Or
of
you
that.
can pay by phone.
And so when we look at about the progress of it, in the old days, you put a quarter in, right? Then the new one, you could go and you could park, and once you left, a new car would go in and they have to pay. And so now, there's no
Well,
stations.
no, it used to be that if someone still had time remaining, you
Yes.
could take that time.
Right. And so the city figured out and the county and the people figured out what to do. And I hope that's what happens over the Shops of Sunset. Say, here we have this gigantic piece of property that can bring many thousands of people a week, many thousand, a lot of which will be out on the street, walking up and down our roads over there, very sort of Coconut Grove-y type of stuff. And they're going to be buying food, they're going to be buying product, they're going to be parking, paying people to do that. And I'm sure the hotel or apartments are going to be a lot of food that's down there, and bringing more and more people to this. A couple of years ago, it didn't look like the city, county needed much housing, but when you think about now, we're really far behind. The county has a plan to help another 35,000 homes go in a short period of time. The original,
Will all of that be right here along 62nd
yeah.
Avenue?
So as you look at it, you go, wow, because the reality is when there's going to be 400 over there, the apartments or hotel, whatever's going to be the shop over there, that's going to generate a lot of people. And
But
the apartments,
here's the irony, which you should do a show on one time, which is market-driven. We don't have to get into this. Government can't legislate this. But notice, 100% of the product, close to it, the vast majority, is apartments. No more condos. And now, not on a per square foot basis, but on a total cost basis, condos are affordable housing.
yes.
Where do young professionals live? If it's apartments, you just live in an apartment as long as you can until you can afford to buy a house, which in some cases gets further and further away in terms of the affordability. Notice there's no more condos coming online. It's all apartments owned by REITs.
Yes. So
It's interesting. Have you thought about that?
no, I haven't. Right?
Think about it. They're not condo buildings. They're all apartment buildings,
Good point. So on that side of the
which
highway,
pay less in taxes.
Right.
Because there's one
Oh,
folio
yes.
as opposed to
Oh, good point. So the shops are going to come up with some new plan. The city's going to take a look at it, figure out what to do. But there are already some plans in the works for the Winn-Dixie property, 73rd Street, across from my favorite hangout, Casa Cuba. All right. Is that all that public yet?
It's fairly soon. The market itself, and market is in the title or is in the name of the next grocer that will occupy that space. But we'll have a great grocer there, which will certainly be a draw, and then luxury, again, rentals, because it was originally privately owned, and now a real estate.
So there's people. So that I'm going to guess if it's 100,
the project.
I don't know how many apartments it is, 100 plus maybe. All right, that means there's going to be 200 to 500 people a day that are going to be walking in and out, walking on the streets, parking there, and of course going to the stores, hopefully around there. Certainly bringing a new group of people to South Miami. And so in your last 2 years, I hope you build up the city, make it really beautiful, right? Let's talk about the mobility on 73rd Street and on 72nd and those side streets, 57th Avenue, whatever those avenues are by the parking garage.
Sure.
Is the parking on the street going to change? Or is it going to stay the same and you're going to do a big push for parking in the garage?
I'm trying to do, I believe I can expand the sidewalks without expanding them, just by removing some of the obstructions, make them more, at least the optics, that will be more pedestrian friendly. There's some, right, olive trees, which, as you know, they're beautiful when well manicured, but they can be very dirty, and they're lifting the sidewalks up, and then we have garbage cans and bike bollards in the middle of the sidewalk. So I want to keep the street parking there. One, it's a source of revenue. It really adds to the charm if you think about that in a traditional main street, and it's convenient. But we need to draw more people to the parking garage, especially now that we acquired it, and we can do that just with familiarity.
So how do you
signage.
Get people to make that first half a dozen times to go to South Miami and say, I'm just going to park over there because I know there's spots?
I mean, as opposed to looping around the block multiple times.
And I have a truck, and I hate driving around,
the congestion,
right, and looking. So
part of it's the accessibility, or making it more friendly. We've lowered the rates, adding security cameras, lighting, of course, the facelift with painting, and so forth. But there's still some things that we can be done, as well as signage. The key is everything in life is habit. Just get people in the routine of going to the garage.
Yes, and I think that's it. How do you get them the first couple times, and when they have a good experience, so they're going to go, I'm not going to drive around. I'm going to get in that garage, and in 5 minutes I'm going to go up. I'm going to park my car, truck, whatever it is, and I'll take the elevator down.
And if you think about it, if you go to the Gables, you may go directly to the garages. And if you go to, same thing on Miami Beach.
Yes.
But in South Miami, it's always been a last resort. And when we acquired that garage, I said, even if we break even, I said, it's still a benefit because we're servicing our businesses.
Yes.
And there wasn't a great operator previously.
And your point is well made, that the city has to have the infrastructure to be able to invite people. Hey, Mr. Winn-Dixie, or whatever it's going to be called, if you don't want that over there, you can park over here. And when is that development supposed to start, more or less? We got a minute and a half left. Go ahead, tell us. What's
June,
public?
In June.
Okay.
I'm laughing because it's like asking your contractor when they're going to be finished. And
Right.
for the last 6 months, they probably told you 2 weeks. But hopefully this June.
So 30 years ago, one of our computer guys said, Michael, when you ask me how much it is, just assume it's going to be twice as much and take twice as long, including from me. So we learned that.
Well, that was nice of him.
Yes, absolutely.
And you still hired him.
I did. Right? 30
That was
years.
nice of
Now I'm
you.
working with the sons that weren't even born then. So, Josh.
Like you knew my father
Yes, absolutely.
before me.
Yeah, I met him in the Footworks
Right.
walking thing. So tell us about Footworks. We've got 1 minute left. About some events that are coming up on with Footworks.
Oh, they have a 3-race series right here in South Miami. They're a non-profit, promote wellness in the community. That always draws a good crowd. It's usually on an off night, which is Sunday night. So yeah, it's good for the community.
And you have the 5K run downtown. When is that?
The corporate run.
Corporate run, biggest
those are always
office
neat.
party around.
But, yeah, well, what's so interesting about that is that's the largest corporate event in the Southeast United States, and it promotes wellness.
Yes.
It's built around a 5K.
All right, we got a couple seconds. Josh Liebman.
Well,
Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for coming
Michael.
over. Again, if you need to reach Josh, you can reach him at City of South Miami's website.
If you need to reach me, just call Michael.
Folks, let's look over and say goodbye. Folks, thank you for
Thank
joining.
you.